If a girl politely states disinterest via text, what should I do? Example, we're texting back and forth and she's a little bleh or terse. It's not really an example, but okay. I keep trying to hit her with value text. I learned a new product, which doesn't work. But that doesn't work and I just go for it. Well, there's your problem right there, right? If value text, if she's not responding to your value text and then you go for it, you just escalate it off negativity. So that's almost never going to work. And she says, I'm sorry, you're really nice, but I'm not interested in anything right now. I'm actually kind of talking to someone, right? So yeah, you definitely, you had a situation where she wasn't responding well, so it was already bad, but then you made a massive social error, right? So of course, when you have a situation that's already going badly and you make a social error, of course you're going to get something very negative. This is very predictable. She says, I'm sorry, I'm just really focused on myself right now. I'm looking out to hang out with anyone. How, if at all, would you proceed in this situation? I usually politely respond, delete her number, and move on. What would you do? Well, okay, so a few things. First one is if you're, okay, first of all, so just because the girl's blah, if she's responding, you shouldn't be just picking value, right? So basically the idea is this guy obviously is trying to follow my text model, but he's making some mistakes. Okay, so number one, if the girl's responding, but they're not like super invested responses, that's not silence. That's more like the sort of the logical, not giving you much type of question. So it's not a pure silence. You want to keep adding value, but if you're sending like random memes or like random value offerings in that situation, you're not progressing things forward. You want to actually interact with those responses, right? If the girl's giving you any kind of real response, you want to try and interact with the responses. Value is designed for pure silence. Like if you're doing pure unrelatable value or pure like meme, random internet value, that's just when the girl's giving you total silence. So first of all, you're not doing enough with the little response she's giving you. Okay, so you're kind of doing too little. And then what happened, I guess, is that you're like, oh, well, this isn't working. And you said, I'll just go for it. So you're doing too little. And then that's not working. So then you tried way too much, and then that's when you got rejected. All right. So what you need to do instead of doing too little and then way too much is do a little more with your too littles. Okay. So be a little more personal in your value offering and those kind of things. All right. So that's a misapplication of the model that got you in trouble in the first place. Also, if you are getting those meh responses, and if that's like the standard for you, you should look at your initial interaction, whether it be live, online, however you're getting the number. And make sure that you're getting more investment and getting a little more commitment there. Okay, so that's what you want to be really doing in those cases. Let's see, what was the next thing? Okay, and then once you've gotten that bad response, respond politely and delete her number. Well, that's just silly, right? I mean, like there's no. I mean you can, I suppose, but there's no point in like deleting the number or whatever. I would at that point. Well, at this point, you probably messed it up because you were doing the value thing in the first place kind of wrong, and so now you're just going back to what you were doing before. Had you been going the right way with her like terse responses and having some kind of like normal responses and like kind of like conversational value offering as opposed to random value offering, at this point, you could give like the polite, friendly response thing or the sort of like reframing it in a friendly way response thing, and then go value offering. The other thing that is really, really helpful in these kind of cases that I do recommend is when you get a girl's number, if she is on things like Snapchat and Instagram, and if you are going to put effort into doing those right, which Snapchat's not that much effort, Instagram kind of is, then having her on there is a good sort of way to promote and create value in that value offering text kind of way without having to make it specific to her. So those girls that are kind of flaky and cold are what basically Snapchat is perfect for, is what I'm saying, right? And so if you do have those flaky, cold girls on a regular basis, get them on Snapchat when you get their number, as well as getting their number. Don't do the fucking Snapchat close. I hate that shit. I see so many guys doing that. They just close for just Snapchat. Fuck that, right? But get the number and the Snapchat, add her on Snapchat, and then just, occasionally snap some cool things going on in your life. That's probably the best way to get those super cold, flaky girls to turn around. That's way better than texting. It's just a more powerful platform for it. All right. So anyway, to the original question. I can see you're trying to apply the model, but you are making some mistakes in the model because you're treating a negative or not a negative. You're treating a blah response as a negative or a silence, right? And a blah response, it's not a silence. It's not a shit test. It's just a not very invested response, but it's still a response. So basically, if you were like at level 2.5, you're treating it as though you're still at like level 0, and you're sending level 0 texts, which of course aren't progressing it. And then you're like, oh, it's not progressing, I'm frustrated, and you send like a level 6 text, right? So that's your main issue that you're having, but you also should work on your initial set, work on getting more solid kind of numbers in the first place, and then hopefully you're gaming in such a way. If you are calibrated throughout your text game stuff, you should be able to take rejections and be able to keep the girl on the funnel and maybe be able to turn around later. But if you've already made previous text mistakes, then it's a little harder. So in this case, the polite response and delete and move on is fine. But you should be gaming in such a way that that's not a necessary option. That should almost never be a necessary option for you in your text game. All right. Okay, this is a repeat of the how to ramble questions. I guess he was just waiting and hadn't had it answered yet. Okay, let's see. In the last webinar, I asked you what's a good response to the shit test. You're 40, oh my god, you're the same age as my mom or dad. You referred me to a video which showed when to lie and tell the truth about your age. We'd be happy to know that I'm a subscriber to your YouTube channel, so I already decided that immediate punishments. However, I've been fed that line by 4 or 5 different girls now, so I'm still looking for a good witty response to that shit test. How would you respond to that comment? Okay, I'll answer more specifically here. The best way to respond to that, if you're getting it a lot, is preemptively. So this is true for almost anything in game. The best way to respond to almost any shit test or objection that's giving you trouble is to be preemptive with it. So if you are getting it a lot, and by a lot I mean like say the majority of times or close to the majority of times when you're talking to much younger girls, then I would consider bringing up the age thing before they do. Right? So instead of them being like, oh my god, you're 40, et cetera, preemptively you could be like, you're too young for me, this would never work, right? And so you make it about them having to qualify an age instead of you having to qualify an age. Because it's not like being young is inherently better than being old in terms of like social value, at least. I mean, I'd prefer to be younger and live longer, but other than that, like there's not a social value reason or like a who's better or who's cooler reason that age should matter, right? So you could just as easily, and maybe even more plausibly, be like, oh, you're too young for me. You'd never be able to keep up, right? So you can preemptively create it as a problem for them instead of the other way around. And that's one thing if it's happening a lot to you. I'm not a huge fan of making an issue out of something if it's not necessary, but if it's becoming an issue in your sets in general and you know that's the case, obviously correct it, right? It's a specific application of the more general theory, which is that whatever objections you're going to consistently get from the girl, it's usually better to give them to her first, all right? So my best suggestion would be, if you are getting it a lot, start experimenting with disqualifying them on age first before they disqualify you on age, okay? The other solution, if you don't do that, or if she happens to bring it up very early or whatever, or if you just like or you disagree with that advice and choose not to use it, or maybe it's coming up a lot, but it's still only in like 10% of your sets, so you don't want to like introduce that element in the other sets. You don't want to ruin the other 90% with it. In that case, the main way to handle that kind of comment is just like be very cool with it or something like that, right? So you're 40, you've been with your parents. You're like, wow, I guess you should really listen to me and respect my authority then, right? Or you're 40, you can be like my parents. Be like, look, it's a little early for you to be calling me dad, right? I mean, there's all kinds of clever, witty responses to that kind of stuff. Or if you like you're old, you can be my age of my parents, or be like, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way. I guess you are a little on the immature side, right? There's a ton of different responses. They're all fine. These kind of objections shouldn't be such a big deal or such like a huge hurdle to get across. But again, it is better to deal with things in such a way that they don't come up rather than deal with them after they come up. So I hope that helps a little bit. And I also hope that video helped both times, and I'm glad you're subscribed on my channel. So I appreciate all of that. Okay. Let's see. For those of us who are not doing pickup professionally, what's the minimum number of approaches per week we need to do to get better? I've been doing about 15 approaches every week for the past year and a half without seeing noticeable improvement in my results. If you're doing that many approaches a week, you should definitely be seeing an improvement. If like even when I was to give you kind of an idea of how much 15 a week is, like 15 a week is not so much. Like I know the Tyler burn it to the ground, like talk to every girl in the place method would suggest doing a lot more than 15 approaches a week. But consistently, 15 approaches a week is probably as many or more than I do, right? I mean, maybe if I'm teaching a very active pickup program, I'm maybe doing more than 15 that week. I'm definitely doing more than 15 that week. But so like probably a lot more in that case. But most weeks, like my typical week, and more importantly, my weeks when I was learning, 15 approaches a week is a decent amount, man. That's not a small amount to be learning from, right? I mean, that's like 3 a day. And to give you perspective on that, it's not 3 a day. It's 3 a day on the weekdays. It's like two and change a day. But to give you perspective on that, when I was trying to get sharp again, right, I was trying to actually actively improve. Once I'd already been a pickup instructor and I was a little rusty, my thing was 3 approaches a day, right? So it's only 21 approaches a week. That's not that many more than 15. And basically what I did is I'd go to the gym on a pretty regular basis. And so whenever I'd go to the gym, that's for the time I left my house. I walked is in Boston. I walked to Harvard Square, took a bus to the gym, went to the gym, took a bus back, walked through Harvard Square, walked back to my place. In that period, I had to do 3 approaches, right? And I would leave early to be able to, get an extra long warm up to the gym, or to be able to do approaches on the way. And so that was my thing basically, and it got me very good very fast. But that's not that many approaches. The key thing, if you're doing that many approaches and not getting results, it's not that you need to do more approaches. Like doing more approaches. I mean, think of it this way: if you're doing 15 approaches every week for the past year and a half, that's 75, 80 approaches, something like that. Or a year and a half, it's more than that. It's like over 100 approaches. If you've done 100 approaches and you're not seeing any progress whatsoever, especially over that long of a period of time, like 100 approaches in a week and not seeing a ton of progress, that's still crazy, but it's not nearly as crazy. But 100 approaches over a year and a half and not seeing progress, that means you have time to digest those approaches, you have time to follow up, you have time to do day 2, you have time to learn more theory, you have all this time, as well as the approaches. That's crazy not to be getting significantly better in that period. And so I would say what you need isn't more approaches per se. 15 a week's plenty, right? If you can do more, by all means, right? 20, 30, whatever, it'd be fine. But 15 a week is a decent amount for a normal human being. But what you need to do is analyze your approaches a bit more, figure out where your sticking points are, and make not the same approach over and over again. All right. I knew a guy once upon a time talking about a lot of approaches. He was doing 12 approaches a day. 12 a day. And he was religious about it, and he did it every single day for a year and a half, and he got no progress. And the reason is he was doing the same approach over and over again 12 times a day. And you're just developing bad habits there, right? So it's not a situation of if I just bang my head against the wall enough times, I'll get through the wall. What you want to do is look around and find a door, right? You want to find a better solution. Don't just go brute force, because just going here's a good phrase. I'm actually going to put up a meme about this. I just titling it last night. I think it's a really good concept, which is in game and in life, you can work hard or you can work difficult. Okay, one way or another. Life's not easy. Game is not easy, right? But you have a choice to work hard or work difficult. And what I mean by that is this: from a work perspective, working hard would be carrying heavy rocks in the hot sun all day, right? That's working hard, right? It's not difficult. It's not super difficult. Pretty much anyone can do it, but it's no fun. It's physically difficult, time-consuming, difficult. It's hard. I mean, difficult again. It's time-consuming, hard, physically hard, right? It's hard, all right? It's funny when you use synonyms or near to make a fine distinction. On the other hand, difficult is if you say do something very technical that requires expertise in thinking and planning ahead, right? Or difficult is coming up with a new great idea or a new great system that's going to help people in life, and then creating a business on that system and managing and that kind of stuff, right? Now, not everyone could do that, right? There's specific skill sets involved in that. There's specific types of work and education. And it's not one where you can just show up at work and put in the hours. You have to do something with the hours. Lifting heavy rocks, you show up and put in the hours lifting rocks, you're going to get it done, right? The building a business, it's just not just showing up, right? And it's no longer about the number of hours. It's about the good decisions you make and what actually, gets done on an intellectual level. Same thing in game, right? You can work hard, go do more approaches and more approaches and more approaches, or you can work difficult. Analyze your approaches, figure out what you're doing wrong, approach with an exercise in mind, approach with a different thing you're trying to improve on or learn on a particular night, do things that push your comfort zone in new ways. That's working difficult, right? And so rather than trying to increase the pure brute force number of sets, think about how can I work difficult so as not to work hard, because that's the choice. In life, you can work difficult or you can work hard. And I don't want a life of doing mindless 1,000,000 sets. I don't want a life of lifting heavy rocks, okay? I want a life of I chose difficult to avoid hard, right? So what I would suggest to you, keep doing your 15 a week. 15 a week's a lot. 15 a week's a decent amount, but find the ways to be difficult in a smart way. Find the ways to, what is my sticking point? What do I need to work on? How can I make my sets a little different? How can I push my comfort zone a little bit further? How can I get better guidance? Those kind of things, right? So don't work harder, work more difficult.